The Rose Garden. Grandpa's story by this name appeared in his 1911 collection, More Ghost Stories. You should check out the original. It's a rather subtle tale. Well, grandson WSJ lives in Regina, Saskatchewan, on the Canadian prairies. So I don't really do rose gardening. But I do like to walk around Lake Wascana in beautiful Wascana Park in the middle of town. So this is my story. It isn't very subtle, but it is true. I had had a rough day at work and decided to decompress by going for a long walk around the lake, a distance of just over 3 kilometers. That's 2 miles for you American listeners. It usually took me about 45 minutes to an hour to hike. Okay, so I'm a slow poke. It was late April, when the local weather is still rather dicey. In fact, it had been a long, hard winter, so there were still mounds of dirty snow under the trees and along the sides of the path. It also gets dark early in April, and it was already dusk when I left my car at the Wascana Center and headed west, knowing I would finish my walk in total darkness. And darkness fell with a thud in about 10 minutes, at which point I was walking through an area of thick shadow and bushes and fir trees. And I heard the call of an owl, a great horned owl. If you've ever heard the hoot of a great horned owl, you'll never forget it. If you have never heard it, I'll do my best to imitate it. But if you're ever walking through the woods and you hear the call of the great horned owl, don't hoot back. I made that mistake once and was immediately swooped by a very angry and very territorial owl, and he only missed because I hit the dirt. I could imagine what those razor-sharp talons would have done to my scalp, and from then on, I treated the great horns with respect, if not affection. I wasn't too surprised on hearing the owl. As I said, it had been a long, harsh winter with lots of snow and -30 temperatures. And with many of the country fields snowbound, owls and other birds of prey had been forced to enter the city to hunt for food. What did surprise me was that there was more than one owl. I must have passed the tree where the owl was perched, for the next time I heard it, it was behind me. But up ahead, another great horned owl hooted a response. Almost like they're talking, I said to myself. But in reality, they were probably just marking their territory. But off towards the other side of the lake, a second bird called. Wow, there seems to be a whole flock of owls here. They usually don't hang out together. And then I heard the sound of wings overhead and saw a dark shadow alight on a bare branch directly above me. An owl. And she called my name. I Heard the Owl Call My Name is a famous novel by Margaret Craven. You should check it out from your local library. The title refers to a First Nations belief that the hoot of an owl is a warning of imminent death. Well, I'd heard owls hoot before, and I had hooted back. And I was still here. But when I said the owl called my name, I meant it literally. It really had called me by name. WSJ. WSJ. It was a mocking female voice. And yes, I have some familiarity with mocking female voices. Even stranger, I didn't think the owl, the woman, whoever had spoken to me out loud. For I was certain I heard it in my head. Not out loud, in my head, like telepathy, if that makes any sense. And I was equally certain that the great horned owl, perched above me, was the being which had spoken. Well, I picked up the pace, following the trail as it moved past the bandshell, when I heard another saucy woman's voice. WSJ. WSJ. We see you. Glancing up quickly, I could see a great horned owl standing like a gargoyle atop the bandshell, and even as I watched, it was joined by a second bird. It was the owl that had originally hooted at me, and which appeared to be following me. Yeah, the one that had originally hooted at me, and it was following me. I increased my speed, following the trail as it curved around the west side of the lake, as I was determined to get to the other side of the water and away from the night birds. Behind me I could hear the two owls call, and from the other side of the lake, in the direction I was headed, there came an answering reply. They had me in their sights. Their night sights? Worse, as the trail took me past the nearby Albert Street Bridge, I saw a great horned owl perched atop of one of the decorative pillars. It was watching me. I hurried along, passing the front of the legislative building, and realized I was about to enter an area with a lot more trees and shrubbery, and a lot more darkness. I thought about turning around and heading back the way I came, but I didn't want to meet those owls who had called to me. And I also had another problem. I had another problem. I had to go. Really badly. And the only washrooms that were open were ahead in the trees, in the darkness. I walked as fast as my overweight bod would allow, spurred on by fear and by the pressure on my bladder. And all the time, I could hear wings overhead and the hooting of owls in the darkness. The area near the washroom was plunged in almost total blackness, and I realized, with a shock, that all the nearby streetlights were out. In the enveloping gloom, I made my way slowly along the barely discernible paths until the gray bulk of the concrete washroom building loomed before me. And then I heard her say one word, "Now." And the air was immediately filled with wings and talons and beaks, and it was also filled with sardonic female laughter. I ran in blind terror, and blindly, as it was too dark to see. My toque was immediately pulled from my head, and when I threw up my arms for protection, I could feel the fabric of my winter coat being torn and clawed. I collided with the concrete wall of the lavatory, then staggered into the little alcove leading to the door of the men's room. Locked. 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 Of course it was locked. It was locked. It was locked. It was locked. Locked! Reeling in terror and despair, I stumbled out into the nearby roadway and was blinded by intense white light, followed by a loud, terrific screech. But the screech of brakes, not a bird of prey. "Hey, buddy," an angry voice yelled out. "You trying to get killed or something?" It was a young guy in a big black Dodge Ram pickup, and I told him I had been attacked by an owl and could he please give me a ride back to the Wascana Center? I'm sure he thought I was nuts, but he obliged, and I got my car and drove straight home. I was just unlocking my side door when I heard the woman, the original woman, the original owl, my nemesis, speaking to me from a nearby fir tree. She said in her snarking and snarky, insulting voice, "Catch you next time, WSJ. Catch you next time." I don't walk around Lake Wascana anymore, and I never walk at night. Instead, when I need a walk, I head to the A.E. Wilson Park, where I walk the trails on the eastern side. It has a nice pond, some flower beds, and no trees. Why these owls, these harpies, why they still want to attack me, I just don't know. I've been harassed in the past by the night floaters. Perhaps they're friends, allies. Well, in future, owl ladies, harpies, let's not meet. But if you insist, catch me if you can. If, and that's a big if. WSJ here. Hope you found this yarn a hoot. Be sure to check out the original in print, or listen to one of the fine recordings of it available on YouTube. I don't know why the Harpies had it in for me. Must have been all those trips to Hooters. And here's a true story. I once dropped my elderly mother off at a shopping mall in Western New York so she could spend the day at her favorite activity, visiting the stores. And when I picked her up at 5 o'clock, she said, "Oh, you should have stayed with me. I had lunch at the most wonderful place, and you should have seen the waitresses. They were all stunning, beautiful girls. Real knockouts. You would have enjoyed it." And I said to her, "Oh, well, that sounds interesting. What was the name of the place, Mom?" And she thought for a moment. She said, "Well, it had kind of a funny name. Oh, yeah, it was called Hooters. Isn't that cute? Hooters." Mom, you were cute yourself, and I miss you. I really do. So please share this video. Comment. I love comments and try to respond. I really do. Drop a like. At least I hope you liked it. And consider subscribing for more night floaters, ghost stories of a librarian, and who knows, maybe even more Hooters. Stay hungry, but watch what you eat, and also watch where you eat.